My wife and I went to France. I think it was a few years ago. She does a relatively decent job, a passable job, speaking the language. I have never taken French a day in my life. And despite never taking French a day in my life, there was an area that we went to that we ended up loving. As we were walking through, there was what they considered to be a silent protest. I think, yeah, people were standing, wasn't saying a word, with just a sign, and it was a sea of them just standing. France, there was another protest while we were there where they were taking cows, and they were putting those cows in the middle of the street in order to stop traffic. French, they have a rich tradition of protests. This is, after all, Libertad. This is the French Revolution. You know, at one point during the French Revolution, the other countries around thought France had lost its mind. The other kings and queens in the various countries looked at France as if France had gone wayward. I mean, after all, they chopped the heads off of the kings and queens in France. But they took an extra step. In their mind, they were going to liberate other countries also from kings and queens, seeing as this was some kind of servitude. Like I said, France has a rich tradition of protest. There is something in me that looks at the Yellow Vest movement, and it does something to me. It gives me, I don't want to say pride, because pride is the wrong word for it, because I'm not French. But there's a solidarity that I feel with these guys pushing and not allowing and not accepting this. And it's something that I wish was more prevalent here in the States. They have, 70 to 80% of the support of the people in the country. This started with a fuel tax, I mean the Yellow Vest movement. This started about a month ago. They have brought that country to a standstill, and all eyes of the world has been on France. Macron has been somewhat incommunicado on this, but he's poked his head up, offered a malconcession of, we'll postpone the fuel tax, in which case they said, we don't want your crumbs, and they went out to the streets and continued the protests. The labor movement at this point, meaning the trade unions, weren't even a part of this. This was mom, pops, kids, people from all sections of the left, all sections of the right. This was the entirety of the country coming together saying, no, we're not going to accept this. And not just not going to accept it, we're going to be in the streets, we're going to put our bodies on the line. And this stupid yellow schmuck that you made us keep in our cars, we're going to use this to get across our indignation. Fucking love that. I love that. And they go out there and they bitched and they moan and they complain. They set shit on fire. They turned over cars. They did what they had to do in order to make their presence known and make their needs make power that had behaved in an unaccountable way, and that for the most part was alienated from the public itself, made them aware. They put themselves in a way where you have to pay attention to us. You're not going to be able to do business as usual without dealing with our concerns. We are the public. You're supposed to be there representing our interests. You're going to represent our interests. We don't like this. We don't like this fuel tax, and not just this fuel tax. Now that we are here, now that we're talking about this fuel tax, we don't like you. We don't want you in that office. After all, you gave us a Hobbes choice between Le Pen and Macron. That's not a choice at all. That woman was a far-right lunatic, and you gave this neoliberal male version of Hillary Clinton. We don't like this. The wages are too low. The taxes are too high. The rich are getting tax cuts. We don't like this. We want a fundamental change in the way this society is run. And we're going to stand out here with these yellow schmucks on until our needs are met. Macron came out last night and gave this speech.
Je n'oublie pas qu'il y a une colère, une indignation. Et cette indignation, beaucoup d'entre nous Beaucoup de Français peuvent la partager. Et celle-là, je ne veux pas la réduire aux comportements inacceptables que je viens de dénoncer. Ce fut d'abord la colère contre une taxe, et le Premier ministre a apporté une réponse en annulant et en supprimant toutes les augmentations prévues pour le début d'année prochaine. Mais cette colère est plus profonde. Je la ressens comme juste à bien des égards. Et elle peut être notre chance. Cela vient de très loin, mais c'est là, maintenant. Sans doute n'avons-nous pas su depuis 1 an et demi y apporter une réponse suffisamment rapide et forte. Je prends ma part de cette responsabilité. Il a pu m'arriver de vous donner le sentiment que ce n'était pas mon souci, que j'avais d'autres priorités. Je sais aussi qu'il m'est arrivé de blesser certains d'entre vous par mes propos. Je veux ce soir être très clair avec vous. Si je me suis battu pour bousculer le système politique en place, les habitudes, les hypocrisies, c'est précisément parce que je crois plus que tout dans notre pays et que je l'aime.
Essentially, he folded to some degree, utterly collapsed. They brought that country to a standstill. And in bringing that country to a standstill, they made him take note of their priorities, not just the priorities of the top 1%. He gave the rich a massive tax cut while trying to increase taxes, or you could say put a gas tax that would have had people paying $7 a gallon for gas. That is fucking amazing. You are giving the rich tax cuts while putting more austerity on the backs of the people who can pay it the least. It's fucking amazing. No wonder they were out there protesting. What if in America they did that in the airlines? They brought those airlines to a halt. The people who work at those airlines had a general strike and said, we're done. I mean, America needs yellow vests. Full stop. America needs yellow vests. This shit should spread around the world. I'm just saying. He's given certain proposals. Whether or not they accept these proposals is unclear. Sometimes when you're in the process of protesting, the protest takes on a life of its own. But in this case, France's President Emmanuel Macron has promised a minimum wage rise and tax concessions in response to weeks of violent protests. Well, the yellow vest wasn't all violent. I mean, you had some on extremes every so often, but the bulk of them were nonviolent, were peaceful. France has seen 4 weeks of violent protests against the fuel taxes, living in costs, and other issues. Speaking in a televised address, Mr. Macron condemned the violence, but said that the protest anger was deep and in many ways legitimate. Not in many ways, it was absolutely legitimate. The minimum wage would increase by 100 euros per month from 2019, he said. A planned tax increase for low-income pensioners will be canceled. Overtime pay will no longer be taxed, and employers will be encouraged to pay a tax-free end-of-the-year bonus to employees, he added. Think about that. He gave the top 1% a massive, massive tax cut and was going to put an increase on low-income pensioners. Are you fucking kidding me? That's amazing. That's utterly amazing. However, he refused to reinstate the tax on his plutocrat friends, saying this would weaken us. We need to create jobs. Because after all, we need to give tax cuts in order for them to create jobs. The minimum wage will be increased by 7%, and the cost of increase will be met by the government rather than the employees. So what, you're taking on more government debt to pay this off? What about canceling the tax cuts and use the tax cuts to pay for this, as opposed to putting this on the government dime? I'm just saying, France's debt is, their debt is already an issue. So what he is, even now, he's protecting his friends. Even now. Government Minister Oliver Dussup told broadcaster BFM TV the total cost of the measures is likely to be between 8 billion and 10 billion euros. We're in the process of fine-tuning to see how we're going to finance it. Analysis by BBC's Hugh Schaufield in Paris. They wanted more than just political promises. They wanted measures, banknotes in their pockets, and tangible change in their impoverished daily lives. All right, so here at the core of their address were 4 simple changes: a rise in the minimum wage, a removal of tax and social charges on overtime, encouragement of employees to give workers a tax-free bonus, and to surcharge on most pensions, plus a note of contrition and a promise of a new national contract built on electoral change and wider consultation with the provinces. Check-in concessions already given, and into the few tax rise and mobility grants for people who drive to work, and Yellow Vest suddenly appears one of the most successful protest movements in modern times. 4 weeks after the first Facebook videos were posted, they have forced a total reorientation of French social and economic policy, and without even making out a formal list of demands. Wow. I'm curious about the reaction. The proposals were dismissed by one Yellow Vest protester, Benjamin Cauchy, who told France 2 TV, "These are half measures. We feel Macron has a lot more to give." Oh, I love the gumption. Oh, there's more in you, buddy. There's more in you. Keep hitting him. His political opponents were also critical. Left-wing leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon said he expected more protests. Right-wing politician Eric Woerth described the moves as short-term solution, and far-right leader Marine Le Pen said Macron had addressed some but not all of his mistakes. This is where he is, 29%. He's below George Bush's level. He's below George Bush. I'm not going to keep this one long because the other one went ridiculously long, but good job, Yellow Vest. Keep punching. If you believe he has more to give, keep punching. I would say this, though. Talking about being born to heal. He didn't have a choice. I mean, what was he going to do? Start massacring the crowd? And I suspect at this point the concern was, does this thing metastasize into something else? They've already gotten to the point where they're calling for his head. They have, 70% approval rating. His approval rating is down to 29%. He has a political crisis. His head is on the line. He has to do something. In this case, he's trying to throw away pieces in order to try to stop them from taking his head. This is like if you're in the middle of a chess game, the person is about to mate your king, and you start throwing pieces away to try to stop him from mating your king in order to start bailing out with the idea of trying to run your king over the board. He is trying to give whatever he can possibly give to stop them from hitting him. The question becomes, and 2 problems with this. They don't have a nucleus. So it's not, here's my list of demands and here's somebody who you're negotiating with, because as far as I can know, it's somewhat amorphous. So he's essentially fighting smoke at this point. He's just trying to throw stuff overboard to try to get enough of them to agree that, okay, this is enough that can withdraw them from protesting. But we'll see. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I mean, who's going to give a formal response when there's nobody to give a formal response? You just have various perspectives in this kind of amorphous group of people who are angry and pissed off at what's taking place. The one thing that they all agree on is that Macron sucks, and that the system and the way the system is organized has been dramatically unfair to them while protecting the top 1%. And even in this, he is protecting the top 1%, taking France further into debt as opposed to removing those tax cuts off of the 1%. I don't know how much those tax cuts on the 1% cost, and whether or not it would be enough, but I would say this: climate change should not be paid on the backs of the lowest part of your income ladder. And the idea that you're going to give tax cuts while at the same token putting a higher burden of austerity on the people at the bottom rung of the ladder, you are massively out of touch and completely discrediting to this idea of running from the left. If I'm not mistaken, he's running as a socialist party. It's fucking insane. Nevertheless, Macron is making concessions and hopes to withdraw support from the protests, that people say, okay, this is enough, and stop protesting and stop setting stuff on fire and stop turning over trucks and stop punching him. We'll see if it has any change. Stay tuned. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through Patreon. France is skipping right to head cuts, never mind the tax cuts. Yeah, they have a history of that, don't they? I don't necessarily know if they're going to get to the point of head cuts, but they are definitely look like it's getting to be pretty nasty. And I would imagine he has no idea where this is going. This is massively out of control. And unless he wants to have scenes where cops are beating and killing people, he has to do something about it. This is his way of trying to stem the tide. We'll see if it works. Thanks all.